There we go. Hello all, welcome to this webinar and thank you for joining. My name is Bas Hoksberg and I'll be presenting this webinar. I expect this webinar to take about 35 to 40 minutes. My colleague Ryan Sainsbury is present as well to help out in the background where required. If you have any questions, use the buttons at the bottom of your screen to get in touch. We might answer them on the fly or at the end of this webinar. Without further ado, let's get started. Today's session is to show you the benefits of Pharos Cloud. Please note I'll be using a cloud demo environment, so some of the features will only be available publicly in the coming weeks. I'll be focusing on the benefits cloud can bring to you, and I might not have the time to explain how to do everything in detail. For that, we've set up a nice set of tutorial videos that detail the individual topics, and those are available on the website, and I'll show you where to find them at the end of this webinar. The key benefits Pharos Cloud offers are based around end-user control, scheduling, ease of setup, integration with Designer, notifications, and administration. I'll be going through all of them one by one. One of the main topics Pharos has heard from many customers is that they want to have a simple page where a non-technical end user can, show off his new installation. So just have a few buttons to click it and show off his installation. And with Pharos Cloud, this has become simple. So how does this work? You need to tell your customer nowadays only two things. Well, that is if you're using Pharos Cloud. The first thing is tell them that they'll receive a link that they need to follow to sign up and create a password, and give them one link they need to remember. This is an example of how such an email might look like, how they need to sign up. So they just need to click a link and present their details. I'm now creating an end user account, and just for recognition, I put this EU at the end of my name to remember that this is, if I'm logged in with this account, I'm mimicking being an end user. This can now just be completely closed because what is important for this end customer is to simply follow this link. And if he follows this link, he will get to a simple page with some buttons he can press. Background image to make it clearer, button colors, very straightforward, but very convenient. He can bookmark this page as required, but of course he can also open such a page from his phone and open it there. So here we see the same mail. Let me click the link. And if I click the link, I see a similar page, of course, adapted to fit on a phone screen, but same style and same functionality. I can bookmark here, but of course, people often want to have an app or something equivalent, and it is possible to make what we call add to home screen, or at least that's how iOS calls it. Android has a similar feature. When doing this, it just saves an icon to your phone's screen, home screen, and you can from there simply open up the app. The user will stay logged in for about a week. If he would not log in for a week, he will be presented with another login screen. He just needs to remember his password, and that's it. Now, besides simple control, there has also been the request, I'd like to end customers who just want to simply schedule something. And Designer is great and very advanced, but you don't necessarily want to tell a customer to go into Designer to adjust the schedule. And this is another thing that is solved with Pharos Cloud. Let me show you how this looks. Of course, the user needs to log in now into his site. And from here, we can go to scheduling, and here's the button to create a new task, or to create a new schedule, I should say. So let's say tonight and tomorrow at 9 o'clock, there should be a party. We select the party task, say, when do I want to do that? Today and tomorrow. At a time, say, well, let's say 9 o'clock. We'll get to the other options later, or sorry, 8 o'clock this evening. Let me confirm this and give a simple description. Let's say this is the party for customer number 1. Let's say it's a multi-purpose venue or something like this. I can add a caller for easy recognition, and I create the trigger. Right now, I create a event that at 8 o'clock tonight and at 8 o'clock tomorrow, this will automatically be recalled on the installation. Let me do this again. Let's say another customer, they like to see a rainbow colors on the installation, and he'd like to see that, well, let's say in the weekend, this Saturday, and it should start around sunset, just so when it gets dark. And like this, we can set a trigger to be firing at sunset. Also over here, of course, I can fill in some some description and add some colors for easy recognition. And of course, everything is nicely shown within the event window to give confidence to the customer what's happening, or what will be happening, I must say. Now let's make one more and use a new recurrence feature. Let's say this is a customer who wants to, who's hiring the venue to do some work sessions, and let's say the session should be playing, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday every day at 9 o'clock, and it should be for about 20 sessions. So I can say from when should it be starting, or actually the customer can say this, of course. When do I want it to end? I can set a specific date, but I can also say after n occurrences, and let's say I want this to be 20 occurrences, and hit next step. Again, here we can put a little description. It always helps to find back what we've actually been doing. And you see now all these events have been scheduled starting from Thursday onwards, because that's the first time when the event is due to run. This is quite a fail-safe for an end customer. He can only do the things what he's allowed to do. Because let's show like this, you might have seen this, there is also an action button on the left, but in this case, this end user will get to see, he doesn't have the right permissions to do this, because the whole cloud system is supported by granular permissions, allowing the user to do only the things they should be allowed to do. And to show that, let's log out from this role and log in as with a different role, let's say the role of integrator. So to do that, I'm logging in, and even though this is also my email address, it's a slightly different one, which is linked to an account that is set up to have much more permissions, because this account is mimicking the integrator, as we can see in the right top of the screen. Over here, of course, I can see that I'm in the right role. We have the ability to see the different users in a project, and it's maybe good to mention that a site can have any amount of users. The users, this is also from where you can invite a user by simply clicking the invite button. Every user has a set of permissions. So our system is not a role-based system, but you can simply set up for every user the individual permissions, what the user is allowed to do and is not allowed to do. For convenience, you can easily copy those permissions from one user to another in case, multiple users should have the same permissions. I will not explain right now what every individual permission feature is doing, but I think you get the scope, that it's very precise to set up in the way you want it to set up. Now let's go back to scheduling, because in 2.7.8, or sorry, with 2.8 from Pharos Design, there will be some quite new features. And the first one is that when you create a new task, a new schedule, you are able to select task, as I've just shown for the end user. But I'm now also able to directly select any action directly on the controller. So let's say the cleaning company calls and they want to come in tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and you realize, hey, I didn't create any task yet to start this cleaning timeline, and hey, I don't even have a trigger programmed for this in Pharos. It's not a problem, because from 2.8 onwards, you can directly give the controller a command to, for example, start a timeline. So we do this, and we of course give it a name, so it's convenient to recognize. We go to the next step. We say, when should this be happening? And I guess let's make this tomorrow at, well, let's say 12 o'clock. Also over here, of course, let's make a description so we recognize it. But you see, this is now an extremely fast way to schedule something completely new on your controller. This trigger doesn't even exist in Pharos, but from Cloud, you can directly tell a controller what needs to happen. As you can see here, that in the events window, it's possible to have multiple tasks for a single day. I mean, this list can be extremely long. In this demo, I kept it quite simple. Something that is possible in the same way is to set colors for groups of lighting. So let's say we want the stairs lighting to go purple tonight. Or let's make it go purple. Let's see when we're going to do that. I can just simply say I select the group and I set via simple color picker. I set the color I want it to go to. It's as simple as this. Let me make a name to remember what I'm trying to set. Set a date when I want to do this, and set a time when to make it. And of course, with astronomical time, we can set it exactly at sunset. But of course, we can also give an offset to astronomical time. Well, even though this is not exactly right, because I think Prince passed away in April, let's say this is for Prince Remembrance Day, just for it being a demo. So like this, we've been able to add additional tasks. And what is pretty convenient, or well, let me maybe show one more thing. Right now, I've every time been setting individual actions, but it is possible to select both multiple actions from the left and put them in the same task. You can even do that for one or multiple controllers in case you would have multiple controllers in your site connected. And for individual actions like scenes, you can conveniently select multiple scenes to start at the same moment, like I'm showing here. Maybe just in between, if people have questions, feel free to ask them either via the chat window or via the Q&A window. I will answer them when possible. Another feature possible, which everybody who program designer probably remembers it, that when you start a timeline, very often you want to release other timelines or only release other timelines in a group. Within the cloud, starting with Designer 2.8, this has become extremely simple that you can make one single action to directly recall the scenes that belong to the same group. So rather than needing to make two different triggers in a single trigger, you can set this. I see a question coming in, and I'll get back to that in a second. So let me just finalize this last part and finalize this this task window by setting when I want this to happen. Let's make this 8 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, let's finalize this to get it in the scheduler. So this is a weekend breakfast scene on in the weekend at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, in case you've made a task, we have a convenient way to still be able to change the things that should happen in the task. Let's think, I selected now 2 scenes to start, but actually I want, I should have selected 2 other scenes, or this color purple I programmed before is not exactly the right color. As long as you have the right permissions, you're able to go in the task, drill down to the element you want to change, and change it from there. This is not possible for every setting, but for quite some of the settings, this is an easy way to quickly change it. Now, I get a question if we're able to program also effect timeline through the cloud or only fixed colors. Programming, let's say on the fly like this, or making triggers on the fly, this only supports fixed colors for one or multiple groups. I mean, it's possible to say I want the left side of the window to be red and the right side of the window to be blue. If you want to do something dynamic, that's easier done from Designer directly, and I'll show that later in this webinar. So what people might have seen, and it was maybe a bit hidden, so let me just pick up a still that showed it. When you're creating a scheduler, we have this window on the left that's talking about priority and date blocking. Possibly this can be a bit advanced for some users, but let me explain it because it is actually quite powerful and it can save a lot of programming efforts. Let's say you got two default schedulers programmed, the morning standard and the daily sunset, that are happening every day, either in the morning or at sunset. And I've just set those up because I want them to happen. Now, let me first go to a request. The customer comes or is in, or yourself, you figure out, but this Tuesday, it should be doing something different. Now, I don't need to go in and start changing the daily sunset trigger. I can just program a new daily special trigger, but I set that to a higher priority. At Tuesday sunset, both the daily sunset and the sunset special are scheduled, but because the sunset special has a higher priority, only that schedule will fire. And we are showing here the little tick marks and crosses. This will also be shown in the online scheduler itself to show which trigger will fire. Now, we also have the feature called date blocking, and that example is shown in the Thursday. If I schedule this special event, and let's say I schedule it that it should happen, multiple times in that day, I can set it to a higher priority and mark it as date blocking. And let me maybe say, if I go back, the date blocking is a simple toggle to turn on or off. If I set the installation to date blocking, I have the on that day, only the events with that highest priority marked with date blocking will be firing. So on the Thursday, it will not fire the morning standard event. It will fire all the special events. It will also not fire the daily sunset in a simple way with a single schedule, be able to override possible other actions that day in case you want to. Now, I've been focusing at this moment on really, let's say, end user features or simple scheduling features, how to use it. But how do you start? How do you need to set up the installation? And with cloud, that is extremely simple. I think all of you have probably connected a computer to a network. I mean, at your house, you plug into the router or modem provided by your internet service provider, and that's it. Pharos Cloud and getting your controllers online is just as simple. You simply need to be sure that your controller is connected on a network that has internet access. You don't need any additional hardware. You don't need to make any special settings in your router. The only thing you need is simple internet access. And we've made sure that the whole connection is secure and that the device can share its information with the cloud. Now, of course, we do want to be sure that only you can see the data and not somebody else who has access to Pharos Cloud. Let me show you how we do that. Over here, I'm commissioning a simple designer project, and I have some. I've made some triggers. I have a simple show, and as you can see, I'm connected to my controller via my local network because I'm now on site commissioning it. I can go to the web interface from the controller and see all the relevant information. Now, I'm highlighting here the network settings because, of course, I need to be sure that network settings are correct. The simplest way is to do that by making your controller set to DHCP. But of course, in some instances, you might prefer a fixed IP. This is possible as well, but then you need to be sure that not only your IP address and subnet mask are correct, but also your default gateway and DNS server is valid. Again, if you set it to DHCP, that's all happening automatically. If not, you just need to type in, well, what is likely the IP address of your DHCP server. I can, of course, see the status normally locally on the controller, what timeline is playing, in this case only one, what groups intensity are playing. I can see what is being output, in this case some KINET data, so I can see the data and I can see that refreshing. In case my project has some IO modules, I can see it all on the local web server. I think this is all known to you. But of course, I want to see this data in the cloud and be sure that only I can see it, not somebody else. The way to do this is that I go to my cloud site, and Pharos Cloud is an invitation. Contact us to get started and to get your own site. In this site, I have the ability to add a device. And of course, you need to have the right permissions to do this, but let's assume you do. I click this button, I give a name for my controller, and I hit submit. Disk is creating a code, and this code, or the key as we call it, you only need it for a few seconds, but it is making sense to be careful with it. As this is being recorded, I decided to gray out part of it. I copy this key and go to my controller and paste this key. At the moment I've hit this button, the key is no longer valid, so even if somebody would see it, it's not a big deal. But this key allows two things. It allows this device to securely connect to the cloud, and it allows the controller to be sure it's showing up in your site. I can just wait for a minute or two, but I'm always a bit impatient, so I go to the log and I can see the process of it making connection and establishing everything. You can see an error from time to time. Not to worry, it will automatically correct it and will resend that data again. Now, if I go to the home page, I can see in the remote management that this little part is unfolding, and it's telling me exactly where the device is connected. It's connected to Pharos Cloud in the portal cloud demo. Well, normally that would just be cloud@pharoscontrols.com. I can see on what site it is connected and the device name. And of course, I can see this data online as well, because let me go back to my cloud site, and now I can see my controller and I can see it's online. And again, this is all there is to it to make a device go online. I simply need to paste one key. The controller has been sharing all its information with the cloud. So all the triggers that are available locally, I can now see from the cloud. And if I want, I can just hit the button to fire those triggers, test against conditions or not, just as on the Pharos website. Also over here, I can see the status, is it at 100% or is it dimmed? Which timelines are running? I can see the log. I can see IO modules. I can see the status. So in this case, it's connected to a building management system. I can conveniently remotely see that that device is still online and there's still a connection present. Remote devices I'll show a bit later today. Even DMX output, I can see with about a refresh rate of 2.5 seconds, I can real-time see all the DMX values being sent by the controller. And there's an advanced stuff to do, well, some advanced stuff, not really in scope of this webinar. I'd say this is a pretty simple way to get a device connected, but it's even possible to do it even simpler. And to show that, I'm going to show you the integration with Designer. And let me just go and tell this. Let's show this, probably easiest. I've now started with a different show file, let's say a fountain lighting with some different scenes programmed. Of course, also some triggers. I'm still on site, right? I'm connected locally to the box. And in this case, I have two remote devices connected that are being used to receive triggers from the fountain system and is able to send triggers to the fountain system. Over here, we have a new site, bus site 3, just to demo. I've created a new site. And as you can see in this site, there's no device connected yet. But rather than connecting my controller from here, I go back to Designer and I select at the project tab, I'm going to the remote management section, and I'm telling to connect to my portal. I log into my portal, so I need to type in my password, the same one I used online, and I select the site I want to link this controller to. In this case, this was site 3. Once I've done this, I can select the controller and hit the Add to Remote Site button. This is, let's say, automatically from the cloud, getting the key and copying it into the controller by a single click. As simple as that. If I now wait for, well, roughly about a minute, I can see indeed online that my controller is there and all the information that's in the controller has been published. Now, also, even remote devices, and let me show that in a second. I can also even see the remote devices that those are connected and those are nicely online. And again, this is all information known in the cloud. I can see what inputs are low or high from the controller. In a convenient way from anywhere in the world. Now, if I go to the files section, we see at this moment it's open. because right now for this controller, there's not any files uploaded yet. And let me do that by simply clicking upload and uploading to the controller. And at this very moment, because I'm still on site, I can still see the IP addresses from the devices show in my local network. I actually have two options. I can either hit upload as you're used to do it, which means upload it via the local network, or I now have the option to say upload to the remote site. So upload to the cloud, and we see this box above it that's saying transfer to controller after uploaded to remote site. That's making sure that I'm uploading the file both to the cloud and from the cloud to the controller. So it's actually going to run this new show file. A simple click is all that required to make sure this happened. If I'm going back to the cloud, and let me refresh this page, I mean, I can also wait, but this goes a bit faster. I can see the file, my project file is now both securely in the site, uploaded to the cloud site, and because I hit transfer, I know it's also uploaded locally to the box. Now let me close this project because I want to show you that this is also working and how this is working if I would connect those devices to a mobile router. And let me now do that. I'm now going to disconnect the devices and I'm going to connect them to a mobile router so they're not longer connected to my computer. At the same time, I want to, while that is booting, I want to show you something else, is that every user has the ability to set up two-factor authentication for an additional level of security. In your profile, you can turn this on and use any standard authenticator like Google, like LastPass, like Microsoft, whatever, any of the two-factor authenticators. You can open that app, make a snapshot from the barcode, and like that, you can set up your authentication that requires to have your phone at the moment of logging in. I can see that the devices connected to the modem have now booted again, and I'm going back on site. So let's say this is the situation that I'm now back in the office. I'm not longer on site, but I noticed when I was on the way back to the office that I actually made some simple type errors or something. You see, I don't find any controller on the local network, but if I would open up the project again, and remember this was the Fountain project, I see this little cloud icon on the top. And why do I see that? Because when I set up this project, at the project tab, I told it that this is a cloud site and I linked that site. Let me make the change I want to make by removing, it should have been singular, not plural. And when I make the change I want to make, I'm clicking this cloud button to log in. So I now, from Designer, sign in again. I need to have my phone at hand because I set up two-factor authentication. I hit the code, and from my upload page, I can see the IP window is clear because it's not. The controller is not connected on my local network. But in the status window, I can see that there is a cloud icon, and I can find the controller. And from here, I can just upload to the remote site, and when I have this done, let me see. Yeah, all good. When I have this done, let me just go to the website to show you that indeed all the changes have taken. Yeah, let me close this and go back to my site. Open site 3. Open up the controller and go to triggers, and you can see now that if I sort it, that everything is now correctly spelled, right? The type errors I was changing are solved. Now, in the same way, of course, if you want to make changes to your project and you want to add some new dynamic scenes because the customer says, can you make a soft blue and yellow sparkle tonight? Yes, you can. From your office, you just open up the Designer file, you make the new timeline that you want to make, either schedule it locally in Designer or you do that later in the cloud, but remotely, you open Designer, you sign in, you upload. That's all you need to do to make sure a new timeline will become available on the controller. So I think that shows the basic, right? The benefit from Designer, but there's actually more benefits from Designer. And the first one is that with Designer 2.8, we have 2 new actions as well. Let me first show this first one. And there's a new action that is allowing you to set a run remote site task. So the same tasks that were used to control a on the control panel for the customer or when he was scheduling, those same tasks can be called as an action from designer. And when is that useful? For example, in this situation, you have a customer who has one big project with 3 different installations, and all installations are connected to the same site, but let's say only via internet, 3 bridges in a city as example. Now, on one of those installations can be a TPC or a TPS, and if a customer hits that button, it will send the action to the cloud to start the timeline on those 3 different installations. So you can make a touch panel that is installed, let's say, in the mayor's office, and at the moment he hits the button, everything should go red. That is talking to the cloud, and from the cloud, all the different bridges get the command to say, yes, I should go to red. This is working. This is, we say, nicely in sync for architectural installations. You can see maybe a second or so difference between controllers. So it's not really show control, but for architectural installations, this is definitely good enough to show it. Another task that's new in Designer in 2.8 is notifications. Let me go back to this site with fountains, and if we look to this site in detail, how this was set up, I see triggers 11 and 12 that are coming from the external system. The fountain system is telling the lighting controller, is the system operational or not? And I used conditional logic to only start the lighting shows when the fountains are actually in operational mode. That's all good, but very likely I actually might want to be informed when the fountain is going into a malfunction mode. And we can do this by setting a new task that is called remote site notifications. And when I add this, I have the option to say when this action is running in the local controller, I either want to send a warning or an error to the cloud. In this case, let's use warning and let's make 2. 1 when the system is going operational, and then let's make a next one where the system is going, is presenting a malfunction. I make this, I upload this to the controller. All right, so just using control upload, a faster way to do it than always going to the network tab, and this is it. I'm now making, I've now mimicked this trigger 12, I made it go high, make this trigger 12 to function. And I need to be sure I do one thing before, and let me show that here, because on the settings tab, every user has the ability to tell what notifications he or she wants to subscribe to. Because you can subscribe to a connection to receive a mail when a device goes online or a device goes offline. And you have the ability to subscribe to individual devices or to the full site. That means to any or to all devices in the site. If you have one controller, it doesn't really matter which one you pick, but you can imagine if you have 3 controllers, think again of the 3 bridges, maybe you want to assign to only one site or to all of them. Once I've set this, let me now make this action again. And if I now would go to my inbox, I will find an email that is looking like this. That is showing me the multiple pieces of information. It's saying hello to me. It's saying me what device, so choosing the device name and in what site that is connected, that it created a warning. It's telling me when that happened, and it's including the message that I included in that mail. I have a simple button, say go to device overview, and now I need to log in again because I'm using an anonymous browser, but from the website, you can directly go to the site and see the relevant information. pretty convenient, of course. And I'm now taking it back to a Pharos controller. I guess, reboot is one of those things. Pharos devices should not reboot on a normal situation. So you can very well put a trigger to device reboot that you get a notification that happened, because it should not be happening. And probably when it's happening, you'd like to be informed. Now for this last part, let me make a little bit of preparation. Here we go. Because that brings me to the last benefit. And yeah, that's looking good. That is the benefit of administration in Pharos Cloud. Right now, I'm logged in as integrator, and yeah, I'm managing all these different sites. And you have the convenience that you have all your sites in one place. The control panel from the first customer. Going back to the other side, the second controller with trying to think what this was actually. With where I showed some different scheduling. All the different sites are in one place, and I haven't showed this. Maybe this is wise to show. The system is also quite fast. Let me just show here. If I start this timeline, I mean, this is real time happening, right? I say off, click, and about, if there's a fade from 2 seconds programmed. That's pretty much the reason why I see it taking 2 seconds. But it's close to immediate that when you hit the button, that the lights are actually changing. But you see the convenience, everything at one place. If a customer calls and says, can you, invite this other user to a site, you just click it, say invite user, type the email from the additional user you need to do, perhaps change 1 or 2 permissions or copy the permissions from one user to the other, and you're good to go. No worry that this new user might mess anything up or anything like that. All extremely simple. The other benefit is, you see there's a little icon over here called, and we call this construction phase. When you have a site, Pharos Cloud is a paid service, but perhaps you cannot convince your customer yet, or your customer says, I don't think I need this. That's okay, we understand that, and Pharos can make a site for you that's in so-called construction mode. When a site is in construction mode, you have the ability to add devices. You can even invite users, but you will not be able to open up the device. And I don't have a device connected here, but if I would try to open up, it will just give an error saying, sorry, you can't, you're in construction mode. But I can see if the device is online or offline. And I'm also able to invite other users if I want to. Now, let's say this customer calls you in 3 months' time and saying, can you, there's something special tonight. Can you please make a new show? At that moment, you have the option to say, yes, customer, sure, right? I get one of my engineers. He's going to get in the car, driving 2 hours to do the changes, 2 hours back, one option. Or I can probably offer you a cheaper version, a cheaper solution, I should say, and I can do it remotely. With Pharos, you arrange that you can get the site, but we actually give you some time to do that, because yourself in a site that's in construction, you have the ability to activate a site by simply clicking one button. If you do this, normally in Pharos Cloud, you will have 7 days in which you, directly can help your customer, but you have 7 days to arrange with Pharos to be sure that the invoicing gets settled, and we're going to change this date to be operational for the next year. It's maybe important to know this setting, getting something out of construction, every site can only do that once, right? So yes, you can say, I'm going to do it to show off something to my customer. That's great. But then the next time, if the customer calls you when you want to reactivate the site, you need to wait for Pharos to have the reactivation done. So we always advise only activate it when needed, but it can really help you out when a customer calls you and needs to get something done. Yeah, permissions, I think I probably said it sufficiently, but let me just say it one more time. The permissions are, they can look a bit complicated, right? All these little dots everywhere, but basically what you need to take from this is that this allows you that any user can only do the things you want them to do. If you have a new guy in your team, and that guy, you trust him to make new files and add them, but you maybe not yet want to actually delete files from the cloud, or to actually, make the transfer happening from the cloud to the controller. That's something you want to keep charge of. Like this, he can upload it to the cloud, and when you think it's time, you can just go to the device. I think I should have used the other controller. You can just go to the device, select the file. You can even do this from your phone now and say, yes, tonight at 8 o'clock, Mr. Customer, I will I know your store is closed at 8 o'clock, so tonight at 8 o'clock, I will transfer this file to the controller. It will reboot and accept this new show file. The last benefit I want to talk to you today is that even if a device is offline, Pharos Cloud allows you to still show the latest status that was known into the cloud. So this controller is offline, but I can still see that, well, what was it? Yesterday at February 10th, this device told me its firmware is this version. Or, at this moment, it told me this was the uptime, etc., etc. So it does not necessarily show the last information or the latest information known with the controller, but you will always be able to see the latest information it shared with the cloud because you or somebody else was looking to this page. Very convenient for troubleshooting. That leaves me to the last bits, and that's just to go to the Pharos Cloud website. This was the one I wanted to show. Under Products, Cloud, you can find the basic information about cloud, and sign up now. If you want to give this a try, you have a site, you want to give it a test, or you have a customer that you might want to, you want to get started, or you have a site that you want to connect to construction, just use the sign up now button, fill in the details, send this to us, and we will help you from there. If you have your site and you want to have a bit more step-by-step tutorial how to do everything, go to support, video tutorials, Pharos Cloud tutorials, and over here you'll find step-by-step videos, the quick connection, how to manage the site, etc., etc. And some more will be added shortly to about the scheduling, and about scheduling will be added shortly. Now, this is quite an interesting one. We see the lighting just turned on, and I figure out, okay, so why was that? Did that make sense? I can just go to the controller, go to the log, and I think actually this is showing me, yes, this makes sense, because I had a astronomical clock triggered that, I'm in the Netherlands, that at 5:43 the lighting should go on. So that's why the lighting next to me just went on. Let me turn it off because I'm turning a bit blue from this. Are there any more questions? I know there was one question which I hope I answered. In case not, Brendan, please feel free to let me know, then I can go in a bit more detail. But I hope that I did explain that if you want to change timelines, you can directly from Designer, and from Designer you can conveniently, with a single click, just upload your show to the controller, wherever that controller might be installed. I see another question. Okay, that was answered, which is good. We have been 45 minutes now, so let me go into the last bit, which is quite straightforward. If you have any question that pops up later today or tomorrow, you can always reach us by contacting us via support@pharoscontrols.com. I'll be ending this webinar shortly. After this webinar, you might receive a small survey where you can provide feedback or also suggest other topics for webinars, and your feedback is very much appreciated. With this, I'll be ending the webinar. I'd like to thank you for your attendance, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.